Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. Super pumped for you guys tuning in here. I have Steve Perry. He is an advisor for so many people building out a talent hunting agency. He does recruiting. He does a lot of financial analysis of things like this. You guys are going to hear more about his story and his background. He's a really cool guy. Toward the end, we're going to talk about some tactics of like how to place amazing people in your team and look at some of those tactics there around building a brand and everything. So stay tuned for that. Before we dive in here, I want everybody to have this free gift down below in the show notes, wherever you're listening to this or watching this. There's a full workshop of how to build your online business. So everybody needs to check that out. It's a free gift. If you're trying to build your personal brand, leverage to know how to get more leads and revenue, this is going to be a really good workshop for you to be able to do that. So go check that out. Steve, as we dive into it, I want to hear kind of your take on what high performance means to you. What does that look like? How do you kind of resonate that whole thing with how you optimize your life and your business right now?
Yeah, great question to open up. I've never heard anyone just like jump right into it like that. So I love that question.
Heck yeah.
And I was listening. I was going back through my old YouTube stuff the other day, and there was a part where I said I was going to write a book called "How to Never Hit Your Goals," and so my mind always goes to like aiming for the star, like the cliche of like aiming for the stars. If you miss, like, or aim for the moon. If you miss, you're going to land among the stars. And so, I operate off of a 12-week plan. Brian Moran wrote a book called The 12-Week Year. And the idea is like, if you focus on it, you can get what Norse people done in a year into 12 weeks. And so when I build that out, I don't know if I've ever actually hit like what I put on there, because for me to put something down on paper, like I got to be excited about that. I'm not going to put something down that says that if I hit it, I'm like, okay, well, duh, of course I was going to hit that. Like, it's got to be exciting for me. Now, one of the things I've learned in my leadership style that has not made me as high of a performer is that not everybody operates that way. There are a lot of people that like they have to hit it consistently and every time to feel like they're winning. Otherwise, they're just going to get demoralized. But specifically, you asking me, I got to put something on paper that I am like really, really jazzed about. And if I get 70 or 80% of the way there, that's still more than anyone would have ever thought it would be. So that's what comes to mind when you bring up high performance.
Love it. Love it. Tactically planning, being intentional. I think that's real important. Well, tell the audience here, like what you do even more in depth. Like, how do you serve people right now?
Yeah. So currently, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called the Well Recruiting Solutions. We are a traditional direct hire permanent placement recruiting company. Companies hire us to find the people that they need to grow their firms. A lot of what we do is we help firms that need more revenue. And so we're hiring the people that are going to drive the revenue, the salespeople. We work a lot in the wealth management space. So financial advisors, business development reps. That's typically the way we come in the door because it's really easy where companies are like, man, you're going to charge me $20, $30, $40, $50,000 to find this person. But I know they're going to bring in $4, $5, $6, $7, $800,000 in revenue. And so, in a way, a lot like what you do, like we help companies grow their revenue by bringing the right people onto their team. And then inevitably from that, right, that creates problems when you bring in revenue. And so then we help them hire the other people that help clean up those problems. But that's what I do now. That's what our firm does. We have 38 people on our team all across the world. We work just in the United States, but in almost every state.
Amazing. How did you build this? Like, bring us back to the very beginning here. You're a financial advisor, but you're also, went to college for different things. Like, you're a fisherman in Alaska. Talk about like the origin story of knowing you're a little bit different, as you're driving and you're building. Where did that all begin?
Yeah. So I would say this is not something that I had built early on when I started, but about 5 years ago, I kind of created my life mission statement. And it is that I'm a bold, encouraging, and generous follower of Jesus Christ who will help fund billions of dollars to grow God's kingdom by leading others to live radically generous lives. And if I look back at, my origin story, right, that's been the theme all the way along. So I started my first company when I was 15 years old. You mentioned commercial fishing. That was my first job, deadliest catch style out there on the ocean. And I got to the end of that season and I saw my paycheck, which for a 14-year-old kid, I think it was a few grand for a month's worth of work, which is pretty good. But I'm like, I know how much fish we caught. I know how much the price of salmon is. Like I could do the math, and I'm like, that owner did pretty well. I want to be the owner. And so
Hmm.
I was 15, started my first company, Perry Pavement Services. So we did asphalt seal coating, crack sealing, asphalt patching, and I grew that company all the way through high school and college. Paid my whole way through all of that without any debt. We were doing six figures summer. It's a real short season, but by the time I was finished up with my senior year of high school or with senior year of college, and so I knew I didn't want to stay in that business for many reasons. I'm sure you could imagine. I ended up becoming a financial advisor. So I interviewed at the local New York Life office in Anchorage, Alaska, and started my career 2006 when I was 20 years old. And because I had the ability to partner with a big brand like New York Life that essentially manufactured all the products and services, and then I got to do all the fun parts of business. And so I did that for 5 years, and then had the opportunity to move into leadership and was promoted to partner in the firm, where my role then was to build and lead a team. Well, you can't lead a team if there's no one on it, and no one else is going to help me build that team. So I had to recruit the team. And so a lot of my time was spent recruiting. So over the 12 years that I was in executive leadership, I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of interviews. I've built and rebuilt teams in 3 different cities, states, Alaska, Texas, and Minnesota, and led firms with over 100 advisors in them. So a lot of experience in that. But what I found, Nathan, is after 17 years, I was making a good income. If I stayed in that role, I would make $30-40 million over the next 20 years of my career. Most people would say you're crazy for giving that up, but I knew who I was because I had developed that mission statement, and I was not going to be able to live to the potential that I knew God had given me, and I wasn't going to be able, like, no one working for someone else, no one was going to allow me to do that, so I had to step out. So I share the story. Like, I was a week away from buying a firm. As a man of integrity, I told my boss, hey, I'm probably not going to be here at the end of the year. And he's like, okay, you're sure? I said, I'm not. Let's meet in 2 weeks. The next week, the deal fell through. The next week, they fired me after 17 years. And I didn't know what I was going to do. So, you talk about the origin story of the well. It was truly prayer. Every Monday, I would wake up and pray and fast and say, Lord, what do you want me to look at doing this week? And he would say, hey, go fly. I want you to fly here and meet with this person and shadow their business. And so I would do that. And then the next Monday I'd pray and fast. All right, Lord, is that it? And he's like, nope. All right, what do you want me to do this week? I want you to call these 10 people, ask them these questions. All right. So I called, and I was like, I had a weekly assignment for several weeks until ultimately he made it clear that I was to start a recruiting company and go back and serve the people that I worked with so closely for so many years. And I'll tell you, the only way that I knew for sure, one of the projects he sent me on is he said, go to India. So I went to India for 2 weeks, and I've got a couple books I wrote. So I was traveling around, speaking on that at different places. And I was talking to these guys that had literally had family members killed for their faith, had been run out of their villages, had their houses burned down. They're living on like $50 a month. And I'm sitting there and they're asking me, like, what are you going to do when you go back to Alaska or go back to America? And I'm like, well, right now I'm thinking about starting this recruiting company. They're like, oh, tell me about that. And so 30 minutes later, I took a breath and I'm like, all right, if in the middle of all of this adversity around these people where I just want to like kind of sell everything and go help them,
Yeah.
I can be that excited about that. That's it. And so that's where I knew like that was my next calling, was to build this company.
Wow. I got goosebumps, man. That's the alignment of impact in your life, and what you thought was a closed door, it turned into an open door, right? And those are hard moments. Like, were you married at that time when you lost that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How did your wife take this when all of a sudden you lost your job and now you're trying to figure out a new identity and path? That's not an easy conversation, let alone experience that you and your wife had at those young ages with kids.
Yeah, no, so that happened in September of 2023. April of 2023, Nathan, we were both sitting at don't know, I don't even remember what it was, some 5-star hotel, listening to the top executives of the company I worked at share their vision. And like, we're sitting in the second row, and the guy is like 10 minutes into his speech, and we both look at each other and we're like, we're not supposed to be here anymore. And so we were very aligned by that. So, we took all of those steps together, analyzing, like, do I go work somewhere else? Do I buy a company? Do I start a company? So we were step by step. And quite frankly, when I got fired, it was the biggest answer to prayer, because I was like, I'm not supposed to be here anymore, but I can't just leave my office and, leave all these people without a leader. And, I brought a bunch of those people into the business. So it was an answer to prayer. I can tell you though, we're sitting there on our back porch. I'm like, whew, yes. And my wife's like, what are we going to do? So it was not free of that, for sure.
And then doing recruiting, let me ask you some tactics around this, because I'm thinking of leverage. You got CEOs, you got business owners that listen here in the podcast, and they know that hiring people is important, but they have some fears around it. If they've never hired anybody, or they're in a place where they know they need to hire, they've hired people in the past, but it hasn't always gone the easiest, or they hire B or C players and not A players. Do they do a remote team, which is really popular and important, or do they do, in-person teams, which they can collaborate more and have more of an office space? Like, what are some like tactics around your take on remote versus in-person, and how do you end up really helping people really design finding the best people in their role?
Yeah. Great question. And I'll actually, like, I'm going to take my recruiter hat off, and I'm going to be the business owner again, right? We've scaled up to 38 people in 15 months. And we have 7 countries that we've got people working in. We've tried everything. And I know you're an expert on this stuff, but like we have tried, like, my third hire, I tried to hire a COO in the Philippines. And, because I'm like, geez, for $11 an hour, I can get someone who's done this for 20 years and, would be a $300,000 a year hire in America. And I tried that did not work at all. So, I've tried it all.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing to look at is, as the business owner or the CEO, what do you have a lot of? Do you have a lot of time? Do you have a lot of money? Do you have a lot of culture? Right? What is it that you have a lot? And then what do you have a lack of? And so for me, it was a lack of money, right? I bootstrapped this whole company. And so I had to get scrappy on where we found talent. So I had to start international first and figure out if I could make that work, even if I was getting a C or a D product. And then I was just like, I'll hire 4 of them to do it. But then I treated everybody like they were in America, like they were part of the team, part of the family, even though it was contractors. There were some challenges and some mistakes that were unraveling from that. But I think that's the first thing you need to look at, is like, what do I have and what do I not have? The other thing that I knew is we're going to have clients all over the United States. And so I don't need somebody to live here in Minnesota with me. So that also said, hey, you can go anywhere in the world. And then from there, we made mistakes and learned, hey, we need these people to be in America. Okay, well, then what's the next option in there? Well, who is super talented that a lot of the rest of the world, like, unfortunately undervalues? And I'm like, my wife. My wife has her master's degree and, like, is one of the hardest workers in the world, but she hasn't worked a real job for 8 years, a real job. And so nobody's going to hire her. So I need to hire people like her, right? These women who were rock stars in their career and then chose to have kids and stay at home. And now we're past that season and ready to go back. So most of our workforce is working moms, and they work from home. And I don't care when they work, because that gives them, like, the most amazing opportunity to work and do something meaningful. And I'll tell you candidly, they deserve to be paid a lot more. I cannot afford it. When I can afford it, I will pay them that, but that's not the most, like, money is not the most important thing to them. The most important thing is that they can do something meaningful, but still be at their house. So it works. And so those are some of the considerations, right? My business partner, his office is right next to mine. He's our COO. Like, that would be really difficult to have remotely somewhere else. It could 100% be done, but we benefit a lot from being able to walk right next door and make decisions on the fly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then do you have, I know a lot of people, they want that. Like you talked about like overseas help. Like I got some teams over there too. Like I think there's some leverage there with, automations, AI, and teams, which is real important to have in an infrastructure of a business, which not every business even has. They do it all themselves, or it's like, it's written in some way. I remember like working for a business early on in like high school and college, where it's like they knew where everything was and stacks of paper on their desk, and in like the places like that, they operate that way, and it's like very loose and it's not structured and they're doing everything and burning out, right? And it's the same way when you're looking at, you're hiring. It's like the leverage is like I could build teams and build structures and systems with overseas people, but like you're saying, there's challenges sometimes nonetheless. That's awesome that you're talking about leverage it with local U.S. talent that is maybe just a few hours difference from you because they're in different parts of the U.S. So how when you made that transition, what changed? What did you see and notice from overseas to in the North America area when you hired people?
Yeah. So, and to be clear, we still have both. So, we have to be significantly more clear and narrow in the scope of what somebody overseas does that it's not even English as a second language, but just American culture as a second culture and understanding nuance. Because the majority of our team that's overseas communicates with prospective candidates or clients in America. And so we have to be very directive. We have to build like a script, like decision tree that's comprehensive, trained, and like we can't put them in situations where it's going to go off script at all. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart. And so that's what we've learned, that we really have to define. Loom videos or like training videos are super important. SOP is super important. My business partner is a aeronautical engineer turned COO. And so his brain works the exact opposite mine does. I'm smart enough to know that we need that stuff, but I'm way too dumb to build that stuff. And so he does all of that. And so I would say that's, when we go to America, they could like immediately tell it once and they're like, I get that. I've been there. I see, even if I haven't done that, I get it. And so there's a lot faster learning curve and a lot further or broader of a job description that they can have. And the same person can do that instead of having to hire 5 people to do each of these narrow tranches.
Let me ask you, what's the difference and how do you qualify someone that's a C player, B player, and A player? How do you vet people? How do you find these key players on your team?
Uh, I would first off say we don't hire C players.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very fast to hire, but I'm also pretty quick to fire. I what I try to do, like if you look at my job descriptions when I'm putting posts up, it's the success plan, like it's the 90-day plan, and so it's pretty clear that whether they're successful or not, whether or not they're doing that or not. Now I will say, Nathan, where I as a leader have failed is, as you know, like in the startup world, sometimes you don't know what the KPIs are going to be and what the results are going to be from that. And so like I've hired SDRs and I've said, you got to do this, and they've done it and hasn't got us a single result. And I'm like, okay, we might need to reanalyze that. And where I own it, where it's R&D, and this, I brought this person in for R&D, I will take a much longer to let someone go. But I look at, are they doing what they were hired to do? With the benefit of the doubt, did they have the tools to do it? And if they are, then I'm going to keep them on. And if it's not the right thing, I have to own that. But if they're not, like, my family hasn't got a paycheck in 17 months, and you not doing your job and being on payroll is keeping my family from getting a paycheck. So we're done. So I would say, most people say hire slowly, fire quickly. I hire quickly and fire quickly. And then quite candidly, because I've talked a lot about this, it's 100% the Holy Spirit. Like I will sit in a quiet place. In fact, that chair right there, and I will just pray about that person and like, what's God doing in my gut,
I
and
love that.
yay or nay. And we've
Yeah.
saved a lot of bad hires that way. But
Tell me about like the business part, what you had to gone through. I kind of bucketed like business in four areas. You got to market yourself, sell your service, do the fulfillment, and then also like build out systems and leadership. With your role, you have a co-founder, which is not always easy.
Co-founder. So
Not a
I was the
co-founder.
only founder. He came in about 4 months in after we had
Okay.
MVP.
Okay. So how do you end up running your business? Many times it's like you got to figure out how to get leads and sales. How did that beginning stage look like? And what would you suggest if you went back in time to kind of look at what you're doing now to really kind of build up a business, what you've seen, what you coach people on now?
So we were talking about AI earlier. My first business partner was ChatGPT. So I sat in my basement for probably 2 weeks, and like I don't know if this is the number one hack, but it's a really big one that I would share with someone is like premium ChatGPT account immediately and do everything in there. Get the app on your phone, talk to it all the time. And like you need the voice wave or whatever so you can dictate it to because I I told every single thought I had, every single like process through what am I missing? What should we add? And so all of like like you're talking about, right? Like marketing, sales, ICP, um, social channels, branding, the logo, like everything. And then the benefit is then we add the team on over time and it already knows all those things. And so we could just stay on point and on brand for the whole tenure of this business. Um, but I knew, so I'll go back to say my career at New York Life, my job was to take somebody who was a sales manager at a, restaurant group and bring them in and to be a financial advisor. And there was no salary and they had to go. So like my job was helping people bootstrap a business from scratch that they've never been in before. So I knew nothing else mattered but sales. If I don't have a client, nothing else matters. And so, yeah, we could spend a few weeks building some branding and a website and, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But I had to go do market surveys. And that was one of the projects, right? Go talk to 20 people, tell them I'm thinking about doing this. What have they done around that? Is that something that they'd be interested in? And, within 2 months, we had 12 clients that were paying us $3,000 a month, right? That took off like a rocket ship. Then the problems come. And that was about when I brought my business partner. And I thought for sure, we were going to do a couple $1,000,000 in the first year. By month 4, we had fulfilled about 20% of what our contracts had said we needed to have fulfilled by month 4. And so the day my partner started with me was the day I emailed everybody and said, hey, we're not charging you this month. And we're going to keep working until we make up the entire backlog of what we have. It ended up costing me 8 times as much to fulfill what I originally thought was going to cost. So we had to do that. And so I had to tell them all, you can't have this product anymore, but you've already paid for it. I can't refund it to you. Like I don't have the money. I mean, I'm not going to refund you. So we're going to work until we fulfill that. And then I'm going to try to sell you on a new product. And that took 6 weeks of some of the hardest, grindiest work you've ever seen. And then we made a new product, which was nowhere near as compelling, right? Everyone wanted the first product, right? It got 12 clients in the first 5 weeks, but that's because it couldn't be done profitably.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can keep going on, but that's.
Talk to me about your you have a books, you speak, you have speaking engagements, you have a family, you have your wife. Like, how do you go about balancing some of these important things in your life, but also, building out the career and reach that you want?
Yeah, great question. So one thing, the book that I wrote, both of them came about when I was bored in my corporate career, when we were crushing it. And like, I'm like, what am I going to do next to challenge? So, there's only so many things like a job where they'll let you do outside business activities. And so that was one that, I was able to kind of sell them on. This will be good for the office and my branding. So that I did that because we were crushing it and I was bored and I've always wanted to do it. I thought about going down like the road that you help so many people with, like the coaching and speaking and all. I needed $1 billion idea. And so I knew that that was not going to happen. I've got to spend a little bit of time with John Maxwell. Actually, he dedicated me as a child. We went to his church growing up when
Wow.
my parents did, and have some close friends that are close friends with him. And, just like hearing like how he's had to transition from the John Maxwell brand, which is as successful as one guy's name could, him and Tony Robbins could possibly be, but how hard that is to have enterprise value. I wanted enterprise value. So anyhow, so we didn't go down that road. So that if I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do it at all. And so I get pretty focused on what is it that I'm doing, knowing that I have priorities. So there's a book called Living Forward, where you go through and you create a life plan and you create all these accounts. What are the most important accounts, which is places you spend time. So for me, number one is my relationship with God. Number two is my personal health. Number three is my relationship with my wife. Number four is my relationship with my kids. And number five then is my business. And so that's where I prioritize my time when I do annual planning and quarterly planning. That's where my calendar is built out around that. And yeah.
How is it with working with your wife? I mean, oftentimes people have the challenge with that.
Very hard. Very hard. She actually was not a part of the business at all for the first 14 months, not until a couple months ago when I was like, I've always had executive assistants. We didn't have the budget to do it. Finally said, I need to get a part-time one. It's probably not going to be the long-term one that I have. And then it was like, well, my wife can step in really easily and do some of these things and then build it out for when we hire the professional one. So she just recently came in. It was super cool. As a husband, I'm sure you would get this, right? Like for your wife to come in and be like, oh, well, yeah, I'm kind of pissed. We haven't got a paycheck for a while, but what you have built and these 38 families that you're paying their bills for, like, that's pretty cool. And so that was a neat moment, but it has been very challenging, like delineating when do we talk about business, when do we talk about everything else. And so we're actually going into a season where she's going to be spending some more time in the business, but it has been a slow burn to really get specific about what lanes are we working in together and what is just personal time.
Steve, this is such an interesting conversation with you, just hearing how you balance everything in your business and growth and how you're helping people. How can people follow you and connect with you further?
Yeah, I'm most active on LinkedIn. So Steve Perry,
Okay.
the Well Recruiting Solutions, I'm on there. I post a lot. One thing, I do a lot of podcasts. So one of the things I created was hirethewell.com. So for people that maybe think they're going to hire someone at some point, you can go there. It's the top 10 fun interview questions to ask to make sure you're going to get the best candidate every time. So hirethewell.com, and then you can stay in touch with us there. Those are probably the two best. I mean, we have everything else, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, but
Awesome. I'm going to put that link down in the show notes so everybody can grab that. Go follow Steve. He's a great guy. And he has some really great resources. So if you're wanting to hire some people, make sure to go reach out to him because he's going to be able to help you dial that in.
thank you.
Steve, thank you for joining us on the podcast. If you guys haven't grabbed that show notes link down below, make sure to go check that out with that whole thing with Steve and then the whole training on how to build an online brand. That's going to really help everybody there. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.